Today we are going to start learning about cells, the diversity of cells. What is a cell? Do you know? A cell is the smallest unit that can perform all of the processes necessary for life. Who discovered cells? A man by the name of Robert Hooke. In 1665, Robert Hooke built a microscope to look at tiny objects. One day, he looked at a thin slice of cork. A cork like you would find on top of a glass bottle. The cork looked like it was made of little boxes. Hooke named these little boxes cells, which means little rooms in Latin. Hooke's cells were really the outer layers of dead cork cells. Hooke also looked at thin slices of living plants. He saw that they too were made of cells. Some cells were even filled with juice. The juicy cells were living cells. So, let's learn a little bit more about Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke spent most of his time looking at plants and fungi. The cells of plants and fungi have cell walls. This will be very important for you to remember. This makes them easy to see. Animal cells, which are the cells that make up our body, do not have these rigid cell walls. This absence of cell walls makes it harder to see the outline of animal cells. Because Hooke couldn't see their cells, he thought that animals weren't made of cells. If you look at this picture here, you will see an image of a plant cell. This plant cell has a rigid outer cell wall. What is cell theory? Almost 200 years passed before scientists concluded that cells are present in all living things, not just plants. Soon after that, Schwann and Rudolf Virchow wrote what is now known as cell theory. Cell theory says that all organisms are made of one or more cells. The cell is the basic unit of all living things. All cells come from existing cells. What are organelles? Organelles are structures that perform specific functions within the cell. These are basically the organs of a cell. What organelles are in all cells? Plasma membrane, ribosomes, cytoplasm, DNA. What is a plasma membrane? Also known as a cell membrane. A cell membrane separates the interior of a cell from the outer environment. It is selectively permeable. The word permeable means that things can pass through it. And it regulates which molecules are allowed to enter and exit the cell. Basically, the plasma membrane is like the skin of the cell. What are ribosomes? Ribosomes make proteins. These proteins are chains of chemical building blocks called amino acids. A protein could contain just a few amino acids, or it could have several thousands. These proteins form the basis for most of what the body does, such as digestion and making energy and growing. So these ribosomes are very important. They basically allow the cell to continue making proteins to build the structures within the cell and to use energy. These ribosomes also contain RNA. What is RNA? Ribonucleic acid. It's a type of nucleic acid. The word ribose means well, sugar, basically. It's a type of sugar. And these are a single strand of sugar. If you look to the right of your screen, you will see an image of RNA. If you notice, RNA is about half the structure of DNA. They're very similar, but yet very different. Let's see here. They can be found inside or outside of the nucleus. They're basically the building blocks of nucleotides, which we'll get to later. Ribosomes are the smallest of all of the organelles within a cell. If you look at this picture here, you will see a representation of DNA, RNA, which is a single strand structure, and the proteins in which the ribosomes contribute to making. What is cytoplasm? Cytoplasm is the fluid inside of a cell and almost all of its contents. Do you see this empty green space within this plant cell? It's the gel-like fluid structure that's within the cell. What is DNA? We will have a little subunit on DNA later, but it would be a good thing for you to understand basically what DNA is now. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. Take a moment and try to pronounce that 5 times fast. DNA is the genetic material that determines what you look like. It determines inherited characteristics. You can learn more about DNA by completing a brain pop later in class. However, if you look at this picture of the cell, you will see that DNA is found within the nucleus of a cell. Inside of the nucleus of a cell are these little X-like structures that we call chromosomes. Inside that chromosome, you will find a double helix structure that we call the DNA.